Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning into this special live stream on the Current Chronicles. A single social media post, that's all it took to spark a serious conversation about removing the President of the United States of America. Not a policy decision, not a military strike, but a message posted on Easter Sunday that many are now calling shocking, dangerous, and even quote unquote unhinged. So much so that lawmakers in the United States are now openly discussing something extraordinary. Can Donald Trump be removed from the office? And more importantly, should he be? Is he fit for the job? That's the question many critics began asking after Trump posted a profanity filled warning to Iran. Many lawmakers, especially from the Democratic Party, called the United States president quote unquote unhinged and demanded that Vice President J.D. Vance and the cabinet invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him from power. An Easter message has now triggered calls for one of the most serious constitutional provisions in the United States of America to be used. And the conversation did not just stay in politics, it spiraled into prediction markets as well, where people actually began betting on the fact that whether the 25th Amendment could be evoked in the United States of America during Trump's second presidency. Think about that for a second. A constitutional crisis turned into a betting market. But what exactly is this amendment and why is it suddenly at the center of global attention? Let's talk about this first. The 25th Amendment was drafted after the 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Its purpose is simple but critical: to ensure that the United States always has a functioning president. It lays out a structured process for transferring power if a president dies, resigns, or is removed. Now, section 1, 2, and 3 deal with relatively straightforward situations, relatively simple situations, like we talked about earlier. But it is this section 4 that everyone is now talking about. This section allows the vice president, which is J.D. Vance, along with the majority of the cabinet, to declare that the president is unable to discharge his duties, and if that happens, the vice president immediately takes over as the acting president of the United States of America. Now, this might sound dramatic because it is. And this is exactly what critics are now pointing towards, that they evoke this amendment. On Easter Sunday, Trump posted a message on Truth Social, which he owns, aimed at Iran. Now, the tone was quite aggressive, but what truly stood out was not really the tone, because that has become a new normal, but it was the language that Trump used. The post wasn't just a warning, it was filled with profanities, it was filled with threats and rhetoric that many believed crossed a line in global diplomacy, especially for someone holding the highest office in the United States of America, and we see from their perspective perhaps the world as well. And the reaction, well, it was immediate and it was indeed explosive. Senate Minority Leader Chuck accused Trump of threatening possible war crime and damaging global alliances. The question is, isn't he doing that already? Senator Chris Murphy called him quote unquote unhinged, somebody who is without any control, and suggested that the cabinet should consider invoking the 25th Amendment. And there were more people who raised their concerns. Representative Yasmin Ansari reminded everyone, and I'm quoting her here, the 25th Amendment exists for a reason. And if we see at all the clues, perhaps she is right. Bernie Sanders did not hold back either, calling the message, and I quote again, the ravings of a dangerous and mentally unbalanced individual. Dangerous and mentally unbalanced individual, this is what he said. But here is when things get a little different, because this is no longer just about criticism. It is also about perception. I'll tell you how. Right now, the global perception is shifting from fear to something far more dangerous. And for a leader, that is mockery. Yes, you heard that right. Mockery is something in the center stage now. Now, Iran is not just responding diplomatically to this whole situation. It is making a mockery out of it. Social media accounts linked to Iranian institutions and officials began posting sarcastic and almost comedic replies. Now, I'm going to read out some of them for you, and you are definitely going to laugh. One post said, and I quote, "Trump, please talk. We are bored." Another joked about headlines and deadlines, and I quote again, "If we don't comply, what will you do?" Followed by a punchline. This is what Trump is supposed to say, and I quote, "I will extend the deadline." At one point, even the timing of Trump's quote unquote announcement was mocked. How? Almost like negotiating a meeting slot on a Google calendar. That let's not, bomb at this time, let's bomb at that time. So this is how they are mocking the Trump. Now, is this geopolitics or some stand up routine? Is this diplomacy or a meme war? Because when rival nations stop taking your threats seriously, which is happening in this case, and start turning them into jokes, which is evident, what does that say about your authority? And it's not just the adversaries who are critical of this whole thing. Even within the United States of America, concerns are not limited just to the Democrats. Let me give you some examples. Former Republican Congressman Joe Walsh called for immediate action. Anthony, he was one of the member of Trump's inner circle. What is he saying? He said, "This is precisely why such a constitutional safeguard exists." He's referring to Amendment 25. He's saying this is perhaps the only reason or one of the reasons why such constitutional safeguards exist. Let me expand the list for you. Journalists, analysts, and commentators all have joined in. These are the people who once endorsed Trump. They're openly questioning not just the content of the message, but the mindset behind that. Are you seeing how critical the situation is? The debate quickly shifted towards the politics to prediction. Prediction markets started treating this like an event you could bet on, something that could happen in real life. Rumors about Trump's health also resurfaced, though officially denied by the White House. But viral claims of medical emergencies were debunked, but they did add fuel to an already raging fire. So to another element, one, the news of Trump being unwell, and another, the predictions market coming into this. And here is a bigger context for you. This is not something new for President Trump. From the January 6th Capitol riots to controversial foreign policy statements, the call to evoke the 25th Amendment has resurfaced multiple times during his first presidency and during his second presidency now. But let me give you a reality check as well. To all those people who are saying that Trump can be ousted, most constitutional experts agree that invoking the 25th Amendment is extremely difficult. I'll tell you why. Because it requires the vice president and a majority of cabinet to come together, to act together. And let's be honest, that it's not just a legal obstacle or a legal process. It is a political earthquake. In simple terms, the system is designed to protect the president, not let him go out of the office that easily. And there is another point to this whole story, that Trump's cabinet is filled with all his loyalists. They're going to go to any heights to support President Trump. So at this point of time, we are not witnessing a political storm, but it is also not a constitutional turning point. It may be a little bit of unhinged political atmosphere for Trump. Now, let me ask you something important. Is this really how the diplomacy works? Is this how global conflicts are handled? Through social media threats and profanity-laced warnings. Have you gone through the language of this message? Or has foreign policy now been reduced to content that needs to go viral, that needs to get you views, likes, all that thing on social media? Because when global tensions are already this high, words are not just words. They are signals, they are strategies. They can even become bigger triggers to bigger unwanted things. So what does it say when those words sound less like statescraft and more like a late night rant? Yes, aggressive language may dominate headlines for a day or two. Definitely they will. It may also trend on X or on other social media platform. It may also energize a certain set of audience. But the question is, does it create a stability, or does it push the world closer to chaos? In this situation, the latter is valid. And here is the uncomfortable question I think that everybody in the year should be asking: what is this doing to the office of the United States of President itself? Is it strengthening its global authority or turning it into a meme material? Because every such moment chips away a layer of credibility. It dilutes the weight of presidential words, presidential statements, and slowly a dangerous possibility emerged. What is this possibility? What if the world stops taking those words seriously? What if the world stops taking you seriously? What happens the day a real warning is issued and nobody in the world listens to that? Dear viewers, leadership at that level is not just about being loud at the level where President Trump is. It's about being measured. It's about knowing not just what to say, but how to say, when to say, how much to say. Because sometimes, I'm saying sometimes to be on a safer side, the difference between control and chaos is just one word or one sentence. And I think President Trump has to learn it. Dear viewers, that's all I have for you on the show tonight on this live stream. I really, really hope that President Trump and everybody in America and Iran come to their senses, and perhaps in Israel as well, and find a relative solution to this whole problem. Because they are not the one who are suffering from this crisis, this confrontation, this war. Countries in different parts of the world are suffering from various sort of challenges, various sort of difficulties and challenges. So perhaps it is time that both the parties sit on a table, think like and act like mature people, leader of their countries, stop making such reckless and threats which are baseless, stop shifting deadlines, come to a point, keep aside their egos and find a solution to this situation. That's all I have for you. I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much for tuning in.